It's tough enough to go to prison, but even more so when you're just a kid. Here are some teenagers reacting to receiving life sentences. Jacob Morgan. Jacob Matthew Morgan was an autistic 17-year-old boy who pleaded guilty to starting a fire that killed his 14-month-old brother, Joshua Hill. Despite his mom and stepfather believing in his innocence, he received a 15-year prison sentence. Here he is praying as the judge reads out the verdict. TJ Lane. TJ Lane was only 17 when he opened fire and killed 3 students and injured 3 others in his school cafeteria. During his trial, he showed no remorse and even wore a t-shirt that said killer and even gave the victims' families the middle finger. He was sentenced to life without a chance of parole. John Freeman. 17-year-old John Freeman was in tears as he begged for forgiveness for strangling 5-year-old Isabella Tennant to death while he was babysitting her. For this merciless act, he was charged with second-degree murder, which he pled guilty to, and was sentenced to 25 years to life. Dylan Schumacher.
I didn't even know him.
Dylan Schumacher was only 16 years old when he brutally beat his girlfriend's 23-month-old son, Austin Smith, to death while the baby's mother was out working. He was found guilty of second-degree murder and given 25 years to life in prison. Dexter Johnson. With 4 other teens, Dexter Johnson robbed young couple Maria Apareche and Hui Ngo, who was parked just outside Ngo's house. They took them to a secluded area where Johnson raped Apareche and another teen shot the victims. He flew into a rage after being sentenced to death. Samantha Grigg. 18-year-old Samantha Grigg had a promising future as a singer when she conspired with 2 men to rob university student Dustin Frolka. They drove Frolka around ATMs and they beat him up, after which Frolka left the moving car and died.
He was a fellow musician. It really breaks my heart.
Grigg pleaded guilty and received 6 to 15 years in prison. Kyandria Cook. 18-year-old Kyandria Cook used a dating app to set up a car robbery that led to the shooting of another teen. As the judge read out her 20-year sentence, Cook's mother cried hysterically and dropped to the floor. In turn, made Cook emotional too. Erica Mae Butts. Erica Mae Butts wailed and hyperventilated after she was sentenced to life with her girlfriend for murdering a 3-year-old girl named Serenity Richardson in 2009. Serenity was Butts' goddaughter, who was vacationing with her and her lover, who had a potty accident and was beaten up for it. Antonio Barbeau. Antonio Barbeau was only 13 years old when he bludgeoned his 78-year-old great-grandmother with a hatchet and a hammer to death for money. 15 years old at the time of his sentencing, Barbeau was in tears after finding out he was sentenced to 37 years to life. His earliest possible release would be in 2048. Fernando Salgado. In 2012, 18-year-old Fernando Salgado attempted to sodomize another student as part of an alleged hazing scandal and was charged with sexual assault. During his sentencing, he hysterically fought off police officers after the judge ordered him to remain in jail unless he paid the $300,000 bail. Nicholas Lindsay. 16-year-old Nicholas Lindsay lived a double life as a goal-oriented student and a gang member who committed grand theft and trespassing when he shot a police officer multiple times at close range. As he was sentenced to life for the murder of a law enforcement officer, he just grinned nonchalantly. Philip Kism. Philip Kism believed being a mere 16-year-old and crying in front of the judge would spare him a grave punishment for his grisly crime, but it did little to lighten his sentence. He was convicted of raping and murdering his 24-year-old math teacher Colleen Ritzer and sentenced to 65 years to life in prison. Shondell Jackson. 19-year-old Shondell Jackson was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide and robbery of 21-year-old student Nathan Potter. During his trial, he shot an angry look at the victim's family and cursed at the judge who read his life sentence.